Alright, so I'm generally not one to go and chase trends, but a lot of games came out in 2018. I played next to none of them. Here are my top games of 2018. Just wanted to go ahead and establish some ground rules because this title is kind of cheating. In order for a game to be on this list, it does need to have come out in 2018. It just needs to be something I picked up, or at least seriously played for the first time in 2018, and really enjoyed. Before getting into the actual top games of 2018 or whatever the fuck, I thought I'd just give some general recommendations of games that I finally got around to playing in 2018 that I really liked. Let's start off with Capcom's attempt to trick the West into liking Monster Hunter. Of course, I'm talking about Dragon's Dogma Dark Arisen, which released like 1 or 2 years ago, but I didn't actually get around to seriously playing it until this year, and goddamn did I love it. Not only is it an extremely mechanically satisfying action RPG, it also has a pretty cool mechanic where you can climb up onto monsters and go for the eyes and all that shit, you know, that flavor text that you can never actually do. There aren't many things quite like jumping off a cliff in a game to try and get a good shot at a monster's head with a big-ass sword. I just think it's really fucking cool, dude. In terms of story, the game could be a lot better, but it could be a lot worse. It's pretty generic, but it's got a nice little twist to cap it off. I'm not going to spoil it here, but for those of you who have played the game, I will say I have never dropped a woman so quickly in my entire life, and I got a game over for it. Still not happy about that. If you're wondering why that seriously played caveat is here, it's just so I could get Ace Attorney on the list, more or less. I played Ace Attorney for the first time about 5 years ago during my freshman year of high school, and I dropped the game a week before Christmas at the very start of Turnabout Goodbyes. If you're familiar with Ace Attorney, you're probably pulling your goddamn hair out right now, and I am so sorry for everything. Storytime aside, Ace Attorney is the game that got me back into visual novels and proved to me that they are more than just glorified digital picture books. Through its art, character writing, music, and general sound design, it establishes an atmosphere that is one of the most interesting things I've ever seen in a video game, much less a DS game. The game does have some puzzle game aspects though, so keep that in mind if you, like me, are a fucking idiot. In the same way that Phoenix Wright opened me up to how visual novels could actually be good, Total War Shogun 2 managed to open me up to the idea that not all strategy games are number-crunching hellholes and that they can actually be fun. It's a very interesting strategy game and a very good introduction to the genre if you're curious about it or just completely disregarded it like I did so many years ago. Yeah, here's one out of left field that probably 2 of you have heard of, and both of you probably got it recommended to you by me. Continuing in the trend that I'm starting to notice in this video of shit that made me not hate a genre, Chalk might be the only bullet hell game I've ever enjoyed. Between its mechanically unique input methods, its pretty nice art direction, and a pretty neat little soundtrack to boot, it's made me curious about trying other games in the genre, but whether or not that'll actually happen due to time constraints and the whole mess that is my free time, we'll see. Still not going to play Toho though, because that shit hurts my fucking eyes. Now for a game that'll surprise no one, because you guys already know what I spend most of 2018 playing. Sengoku Rance is a turn-based strategy conquest RPG. It's got a neat fish-out-of-water vibe to it, and on top of that, its story is pretty interesting, has several endings, and branches a lot within the story depending on what objectives you complete in what order. One of the things that really amazes me about this game is that despite the fact that it's the 7th, or 10th if you count a bunch of spin-off and non-canon titles, it's a really great introduction to the series that I highly recommend as a first. With the general recommendations out of the way, I wanted to move on to another list of games which, to put it simply, I really expected to enjoy but didn't. Starting off with the 2 games that made me break my rule of playing series in release order, Yakuza 1 on the PS2 and Drakengard. In the case of Yakuza, it's a game I really expected to enjoy because of its setting, all I've heard about the characters, the combat, everything, and none of it grabbed me at all. I mean, yes, you could chalk up the shitty combat to it being on the PS2, but what about the story that didn't grip me at all, the characters that just fell flat with me, or just the wonderful, gorgeous city that I had no drive whatsoever to actually go out of my way to explore? It genuinely disappointed me. And then there's Drakengard, a game that was intentionally designed to make the player hate it, and I guess it worked. As much as I want to see how this game ends and what'll come of it, I can't get past how horribly this game plays, how rough the voice acting is, how horrible and grating the music is. I just can't do it. I can't? So fuck it, I guess I'm just going to move on to Drakengard 3 or Nier or something, because I'm not going to finish this game. Next is Radiant Historia, this fun little Atlas RPG that revolves around the main gimmick of time travel, and it's one of the few games, or really any property, that I've seen nail time travel in a way I actually find makes sense and is interesting. Where this game ended up burning through all that goodwill was its terribly designed boss encounters, which encapsulate every single stereotype of JRPG bosses down to the bloated health and bloated damage. This was actually something I managed to push through for a while, just to find that when I got to the very end of the game, where the final boss was literally on the other side of the door, they took 4 bosses from the game, made them even more busted, and threw them at me again and said kill them to beat the game. I dropped the game right then and there, and I've sold it since. I'll never know how this game ends, and that's really something that hurts me. Next is a game I'm worried that might ruffle a couple of feathers, because I know it showed up on a lot of 2018 lists, but I've gotta say, Celeste has a message that I don't really agree with. That whole metaphor of depression as a mountain has never really gelled with me, but that's more of a personal thing. On a gameplay level, I've gotta say this is one of the most well put together platformers I've ever played. Really, my one gripe is just the story and the message it's trying to present. I feel like I'd enjoy this game a lot more if the story was less in your face, but the way the two of them weave in and out of each other, it's just something that I have to deal with. The next game up on games I liked until I didn't was fucking Fire Emblem Heroes. I just wanted to shit. With those honorable mentions out of the way, we now get onto the one part of this list that isn't actually cheating. My game of the year for 2018 that actually came out in 2018. Pretty easy pick because I only played 2 games that actually came out last year. Iconoclast is a game with an interesting setting, a well-written cast, an excellent story, beautiful art direction, and a fantastic soundtrack. I can't help but absolutely love everything about this game. While I do have a handful of complaints, they're relatively minor, and no, I'm not going to get this game's dick out of my mouth. It's my game of the year, fuck you. If you're a fan of Metroidvanias or platformers or anything in that general ballpark of genre, I would highly recommend this game. You get a lot of bang for your buck with it. And with that out of the way, I go on to my top 3 games of 2018, and none of which actually came out in 2018. Absolutely nothing here is going to surprise you if you know me well. The first game we have is fucking Japanese. When I binged the Rance series this past year, Brutal King Rance was the last game I played, and I've gotta say it's probably my favorite. For a game made in 1996, the sheer amount of branching plot lines and different little story threads in this game is really impressive to me, and it's part of why I loved it as much as I did. And the rest of my fascination with this game goes to the fun, albeit somewhat dated gameplay. With the sheer amount of content in this game, I'm not at all surprised when I hear that it nearly bankrupted the company. Although I'll save any further conversation for a later date, because I may or may not have some secret plans for this game. Next up is Fire Emblem Path of Radiance, a Fire Emblem game that finally took the story of the series beyond her I'm prissy inbred royal kid number 15,000 help me reconquer my kingdom please. I feel like this new direction helped the story change into something a bit more interesting, and as a result, it gave just about every other Fire Emblem game I've played a run for its money in the story department. It also had a lot of ideas that built on the basic Fire Emblem formula, which I found really nice and wish they would revisit. For example, you can get bonus experience for finishing a chapter quickly or doing some side objective to give to weaker units between missions. Or something I really like is that most units just promote at level 21 for free without needing some extra item like pretty much every other game. And to boot, the game has some really good character designs that belong to some really good characters. Some personal favorites of mine would be Soren and Nephany, and of course the protagonist.
Ike.
If you have, for whatever reason, never played a Fire Emblem game and you had to play one, I'd honestly have to say Path of Radiance over Sacred Stones. Despite how much I love Sacred Stones, I just feel Path of Radiance is a better example now. And finally, the one that's probably going to be a hell of a head scratcher for most of you, I've got to give the last spot on my list to Shadowrun. Yeah, the tabletop game. To be fair, I did say at the very start that I was cheating pretty hard with this list. Shadowrun is on this list less for the fact that it's a good game, because it's really not. It's edited by fucking monkeys, but that's beside the point. It's here because of the friends I made playing this game, because of the stories I have to tell and all the good memories I have because of it. There's just a lot of fun to be had playing a backwards-ass game with people you like. So if anything, the point I want to make with putting this game on my list is to at least try tabletop at some point. You never know if you'll like it or not, and the hard part is finding a group, so put yourself out there, is what I'm saying. You never know the people you'll meet.
It has a stick figure of Owen in the crowd with a bunch of like dotted line people.
Is it a stick figure? Is it a stick figure with a shitty haircut?
Yeah.
Oh, why is that one Owen?
The terror.
Intense magical energy this man exudes. I wonder who it's supposed to be.
In hindsight, 2018 kinda sucked. I was more or less over it by summertime because between college and work shoving its boot up my ass, I was in a really rough place. If you were talking to me personally around that time, you know all too well that I wasn't doing too hot. I said a lot of shitty things I regret in hindsight, but there's not a lot I can do about that now. It's looking like 2019 is going to be a pretty good year, so hopefully it treats you guys as nice as it's treated me so far. Stay safe, and I'll see you the next time one of these comes out. You know me by now, it either takes 1 month or 6 with these things, but whatever happens, I know at least one of you guys is going to be here for it, and that's what helps me out. Thank you.